Welcome back. We're going to be taking a moment to talk about the episode Charlie X. Original air date September 15th, 1966. Great episode, man. Good follow-up to the first one. Definitely kind of got a creepier feel. The kid that plays Charlie is spot on. Great fucking actor. I mean, he sells the part 100% and definitely makes the episode, because everybody else really kind of almost plays supporting cast to the kid in the episode, which is cool, and it's an odd direction for a show to take, like right on the second episode, you know. Again, doesn't work like TV does nowadays, where they pretty much spend the first season just trying to make you fall in love with the characters. And this, it's just like right into awesome stories. And I think that was, if I remember right, that was kind of Gene Roddenberry's original plan, was that it was supposed to be kind of like the Western serials, but in space. I think that's how he even marketed the pitch for the show when he was trying to sell it to the production companies or whatever. Basic gist of it is, this ship called the Antares comes and drops this kid off with them, who they found down on this planet that used to be occupied by these Thasians, I believe it is. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong on that alien species. They're really just like these green wobbly heads that fly around in these giant Christmas light kind of ships. But we'll get to that. Basically, they bring him this kid that had been crash landed on the planet for 14 years and had somehow survived all on his own. So he has like no experience dealing with other humans and really no social abilities whatsoever, right? So they drop him off on the ship, and something's kind of fishy. Like, you can tell right off the bat that they're not saying something that they want to say because of the kid, and he's kind of giving him these funny looks, and it's just all pretty bizarre at first. Then as things kind of go on, you kind of start getting the idea that this kid can somehow make things appear and materialize, and he can influence people's ways they see things, or not really so much the way they see things. He can like physically influence things with his mind, right? And we'll show you an example of that right here, where he actually turns this girl into an iguana. So
Charlie, what's wrong?
And basically, like, that's kind of slowly getting more and more out of hand. The whole course of the episode, Kirk's basically trying to be like a father figure to him, I guess, at the advice of the other crew members, and sort of give him like the birds and the bees talk, which sadly enough I didn't record it, but that's probably one of the funniest moments in the whole episode, is Kirk trying to give him the father-son, like, you know, this is how things work between men and women kind of speech, but he just blows it, and that's pretty good. But basically, he's trying to kind of get this kid to realize the way to do things normally, and he doesn't want to do it that way. He can just use his mind powers to get whatever he wants, so it slowly kind of starts melting down. He ends up blowing up the ship, like right at the beginning of the other ship. That's when they first start getting suspicions, I guess, because like before they can even figure it out, he's like, oh, well, it was poorly constructed anyways, or whatever. And then it turns out the ship had blown up. So that kind of gets them thinking, and they realize, like, you know, the Thasians, who are the people that supposedly inhabited this planet before, had the ability to influence things and make things materialize or change with their mind, right? And so they finally eventually figure this out, because the kid just comes right out and like makes this dude disappear right in front of fucking Kirk, right? Like, he just gets mad because the guy's laughing at him while they're wrestling, so he just whoop, makes him disappear, basically. It's pretty sweet, 'cause he does this wicked like face every time that he fucking does it. It's sick. I'll include, well, obviously it was in the clip with the iguana, but it's just kind of slowly starts melting down. And the whole time he kind of had the hots for Yeoman Rand. Yeoman Rand.
You got a deal, friend.
Charlie?
Which basically fucking, like, got Kirk talking to him about the whole birds and the bees type stuff in the first place. And then that just gets more and more escalated throughout the episode. He ends up making her disappear, and things are just getting crazy. He's basically got control of the entire ship. push comes to shove, they end up kind of realizing that obviously since he got control of the whole ship, he hasn't been able to actually make anybody disappear. So they come up with the idea that it's weakening him to like control all these things at once. So they use that to try to take advantage of everything. And right as Kirk's about to pop him one, I think it is, the other Thasians show up and basically take him back. And that's really not ruining anything. Like, the episode basically to me is kind of a rip off of, I believe it's a Twilight Zone episode where this little kid can just make people disappear and the whole town like lives in fear of this little kid. That's like, it has to have something to do with that episode of Star Trek because it is so similar that it's just uncanny. Like, I mean, it's basically the same episode but in space, you know, and it works really well. Like I said, the kid that plays Charlie really sells the role. It's 100% an entertaining episode. Compared to the first one, I mean, it's not my favorite as far as the earlier episodes go, but it really is one that's kind of grown on me now that I've watched it a few times, and especially, like I said, that kid's performance is spot on. Like, you really kind of believe that he's this kid that's lived for 14 years alone, and then he obviously has some serious attachment issues after the fact, so definitely worth checking out. And we'll see you back here next time with Where No Man Has Gone Before, I believe is the name of the episode, and it is actually the second pilot, the original pilot with this cast of actors, so stay tuned for that. One more quick thing before we go, though. I just wanted to point out a couple points of interest that occur in this episode. This is the first ever occurrence, or ever appearance of the 3D chess game that Spock and Kirk often play throughout the series. And that's kind of like one of those iconic Star Trek original series like images you think of as, like, you know, the old school phasers and the tricorders and the 3D chess and the, you know, the uniforms and all that. I mean, those are those things I think of when I think about it. So I just thought that'd be interesting to point out. And also another point of interest that actually doesn't happen in the episode yet, but it's still in the first two actual aired episodes of the show. Montgomery Scott, or Scotty, the engineer, hasn't appeared yet. But he appears in the third episode, Where No Man Has Gone Before, which, as I said, was originally the second pilot produced. After the first one, The Cage was refused by NBC or whatever. And apparently it never would have been produced if it hadn't been for Lucille Ball. This could just be a rumor, but apparently Lucille Ball, or the lady from I Love Lucy, encouraged them to give him a shot at the second pilot, right? She owned Desilu Studios or something like that. But I just found that kind of odd, because, you know, it's like he was in the pilot and he didn't appear for a few episodes and then he's back on the show. Like, I never really noticed, like I said in the last segment, I never really noticed Scotty not being there for the first few episodes, so it'll be interesting to see when he actually officially appears in the actual series aside from the pilot or episode 3. So just something I thought you might find interesting. So until next time.
Captain's log, stardate 1533.7. We have taken aboard an unusual passenger, the sole survivor of a transport crash 14 years ago.
Are you a girl?
Oh, Charlie's our new darling, our darling, our darling. Charlie's our new darling. We know not what he'll do.
She could love me.
She's not the girl, Charlie.
But if I did what you said, if I was gentle?
Charlie, there are a million things in this universe you can have, and there are a million things you can't have. That's the way things are.
Look, I'm off duty at 1400. Why don't you join me in Recreation Room 6, Deck 3?
You got a deal, friend.
You're responsible for what happened to the Antares.
Why?
Answer me.
Well, they weren't nice to me.
What about us, Charlie?